Hey, welcome to part 3 of the Turkey series tutorial. So in this one, all I want to do is just literally just paint the guy and bring him into Blender for like a quick render and see how he's looking, right? And I did get a request for part 4 after this one, where maybe we can create proper topology for this guy and also run him through Substance Painter to create some textures. So someone was interested in that as well. But in this one, let's just do something really simple. How do we just simply poly paint this guy and bring him into Blender? And let's just assume he's just not really an animated character, or neither is he, going to be plugged into a game. We just simply want to take this and do like a still image in Blender. All right. So to add some color to this, I'm going to use PolyPaint. So to get started, let's just grab a standard plane material. I'm going to go to my standard materials and just apply the skin shader 4. And that's going to give me kind of a plain white color. And this is going to allow me to see how he's looking as we paint him. All right. So you usually want to apply something that is light and doesn't have any kind of extra things to it. So for example, if I grab some other material like polyskin, I love this one just for previews. You can see the difference. Looks so much cooler. But you don't want to have this, right? Because if you're painting, none of this detail is actually going to be built in or painted in, right? Because this is just the material preview, and we can't take the material with us to Blender. So for that reason, by the way, you can grab this on my Gumroad in the link below this video if you like this material. But for that reason, I always just apply something super plain like this one. And this is great to start painting. So let's just go through these subtools and just quickly apply some paint to this, right? And I'm going to, let's just start from the top. And this is how the last tutorial ended as far as the video goes, part 2. So I'm going to go to the head one. And let me just decide what color turkey, do we want, right? So I think usually the top of the head is something along these lines, kind of a reddish color. And I think that's pretty much perfect. I can make it just a little more red, something like that. I think is great. I'm going to do fill object, and that's going to be the top of that. Let's go to the bandana and decide if he has a red head, maybe the bandana could also be red, but maybe kind of a dark red. I think that looks great. I'm going to say fill object on that. And when I say fill object, I want to point out something important, which is it's going to be using the RGB color at the full intensity. So now if I go to any other color, you can see that these two are actually going to stay painted, right? And you have this little paint brush showing you which layers have been painted or which layers are holding the paint information, right? So that's important. If you wanted to change the intensity of the color, right now it's set to all the way to 100. Of course, you have to activate the RGB, and you have this little slider that you can adjust. But if it's off, it will just use the full intensity. So keep that in mind. I don't really need add at this point. Let's just keep going. So the next one down the list is going to be my beak, and I would like my beak to be kind of a classic orange beak, kind of maybe reddish orange. I personally like this. I'm going to fill that in and keep going. I'm going to go to the eyes. The eyes will just going to be plain white. All right, and the pupils, I think I'm just going to go with something like black, maybe like a bluish, kind of a bluish dark black here. I'm going to fill that in. I think that's perfect. Maybe just make it just a little bit lighter. And I like that. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for this one and keep going, right? The top of the head is probably also going to be red, matching the color of his head. So I'm going to hover over the head and press C to match this. And I'm going to say fill object. And let's go to the beak next. The bottom of the beak, hover over this one, press C, and I need to paint that in, make sure it's selected, just do fill object. Keep going. This is going to be my cigar. The cigar is going to be, I'm just going to make it nice and kind of a dark brown. Fill that in. And of course, this portion here needs to be painted in manually. So let's go ahead and go to solo and think about how we would like to paint the inner part of the cigar to make it look like, you know, it has, maybe it's burning, right? For that, I'm actually gonna use the, let's use spray, color spray. And I like these guys here, that's fine. This is gonna be, what is this? This is gonna be alpha, I think I'm gonna go to alpha 31. And for color, I'm just gonna go to red. All right, one other thing I would like to do is I'm gonna press Control, and let me switch this to my pen, and let me just mask out the part of the cigar that I want to have the, you know, kind of the fire effect. I want all of this to stay kind of this brown color. I don't want to touch that, right? So I'm gonna select this. I'm gonna press Control and click to reverse it. And now I can actually color this in, right? So I'm gonna go back to my standard brush, and let's just start kind of painting this. And let me see, maybe I'll make this a little bit larger. Yeah, I like, this is what I was going for, that's great. Let's go ahead and also grab the yellow one. Maybe some of this part can just also be yellow. And very quickly I created something that looks a lot like, you know, like it's on fire, right? Let's do Control and drag to get rid of the mask for the rest of it. I'm gonna press C to sample this color. And let me just go up to make it just a little bit lighter. And what I would like to do is I wanna make some, add some variation to this. So let me just do, let's do spray color, that's fine. And to add some variation, I can even just use anything that would work as like a, you know, a noise, right? Alpha 7 I think is fine. And very quickly, let me just change this from spray. I'm actually gonna switch to this alpha. Let me do this alpha 4 and see how that looks. I kind of like this. Essentially all I need to do is just, I'm trying to break this color up, right? And maybe this is a little too intense. Let me go to, and let's do almost 30. And there you go. This is what I'm trying to do. You see how I'm kind of breaking this color up and it looks somewhat patchy. And I think that's perfect for kind of a cigar look. You know, if you wanted to add some noise to this as well, it's very easy. Let's just grab something like the drag rectangular. Let's just do maybe add some, I don't know, we'll add some lines to this. Let's do this alpha 60. And instead of just RGB, let's turn off RGB because I like the color on this. And let's just do a little subtract. And maybe we can just drag a few lines here to break the surface even more and make it look like, you know, kind of an old cigar look, right? Of course, you can change the intensity of your alpha if you want to make this, you know, a little stronger or weaker, but I think something like this will work just fine. Essentially just literally just breaking the surface up very quickly, right? And you can see that, to me, that looks great as far as like a cigar goes. Very nice. Let's go ahead and jump out of solo and take a look. And I think that's great. I personally like it. You can spend more time on this if you want. Let's just keep going, right? What's next? Next is going to be the tongue. You can't really even see the tongue. It's not really that big of a deal. So I'm just going to hover over this, press C, and let me just fill that object in. And I do want to make sure that my intensity at 100%. And let me just do fill object. That's perfect. Next is going to be this little thing hanging from his face. Same thing. Just going to do fill object with the red. Now I have the feet next. I'm going to hover over this orange, press C, and do a fill object on those. And honestly, I would love to have the nails to be a different color. Let me solo this for a second. Go into PolyFrame. Let's do Control. If this is not the case, if you're not seeing the same thing on your end, you can always do auto group, and that's going to auto group all of these pieces, which also means we can do Control Shift and click on one of the legs, click on it again to hide it, click on this one to hide it, and now we can paint these, right? So maybe let's go ahead and do the same thing as far as like the bluish black goes. We'll do something like this and do a fill object. And just decide if you like that. Maybe I'll do something like this. Do Control Shift click to bring the feedback, and now I have something along these lines. jump out of the solo and take a look. I think that looks good. I like the black nails with the orange feet. That looks amazing. I'm gonna select the neck, hover over this color, press C, and let me fill the neck in red. And then let me go back to the body. And I think what I would like to do is make the body, I think it's kind of brown. Let's go with like a brown color. I think something along these lines I think is great, right? I like the contrast of like this kind of a muddy, dark brown with like this red. It's great. And you can of course pull up some references. I'm almost doing it like a toy, so I'm just applying somewhat basic colors, right? But I like this, so I'm gonna do fill object. And for the tail, let me do the same thing. We can add maybe some design to this if we wanted to. It would be cool to get like lighter stripes on top. Let's just do that real quick actually. I'm gonna go to solo, hold down shift, and let me jump out of perspective view. Hold on the shift to snap. And let's just add a little simple design going around the tail. And I think it would be cool if we chose the white color. And let's think about this. Let's go into our normal brush. I would like to actually try a trick. I'm gonna do alpha 14, and with the white color selected, and this I'm gonna set this to a dot. And what I would like to do is drag a dot, but I actually want to change my focal shift to make it nice and sharp and maybe a little bit larger. If you don't have enough resolution on this, you can always, of course, do Control D, and that's gonna give you a lot more res, and this is gonna become much more clear, right? I'm actually gonna go ahead and do that. So I'll do something like this, and what I would like to do is I'm gonna add the same design to all of these. And I suppose I could turn on, let me go back. What I could do is I could turn on active symmetry. Let me just do them all at once because these are symmetrical, right? Just very quickly, I'm going to add something like this. All right, let's say I like this. Now, to make them even more interesting, I can hover over this color, press C, and then go back and do something along these lines. And that's going to be really cool. I think it's going to give us, let me turn off my symmetry on this one, but it's going to give us kind of this custom design that looks like it was somewhat hard to draw, but we are just using this really cool trick to mask the color, right? So let's go ahead and do that all the way around. I kind of like the look of this. I think that totally works. If you wanted to make maybe this part here just a little bit lighter, let's hover over this, press C. Let me go back to my 0 and let me switch this to dots. Let me switch this to alpha 1 actually, make this kind of large. And what I would like to do is make this just a bit lighter, right? And let's just do something like this, maybe even make the brush even larger. But essentially we can just add a little lighter section to here. Let's press X to turn off symmetry, and I'm just gonna very slowly, very gradually kind of click around until I get all of this a little bit lighter. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to break the colors up and add somewhat a little bit of a variation. And I actually like how the back looks as well. I think that's cool. I'm not really sure if that design needs to be on the back. I think I'm gonna skip that, but if you want to, of course, you can add that as well. Let's go ahead and jump out of the solo and take a look. Now our turkey has this really nice kind of a break in the color. And I can do the same thing with the body here, right? I can press Alt, click on the body. Let's go into solo mode and maybe just do a little highlights here and make my brush very large and just do a little bit of a lighter color here and maybe on the wings as well. You can also change the RGB if it's a little hard to control. You know, I can dial this down and just add a little break in the color, right? You can see what I'm doing. I liking this. You can of course also, if you watched my witch tutorials, we went through a very detailed process of using masking to create phenomenal painting effects. So please check out that video. It was the last part of the witch tutorial. All right, so he's looking good. Let's see what else can we do. Let's go ahead and just simply finish the rest. The rest is going to be, let's see, we have the bullets and the weapons. For the weapons, I'm just gonna go with something super simple, kind of like the gray color. And you know what? I honestly wouldn't mind doing them all at the same time. So why don't I merge them down, because they are gonna, you know, they're sort of the same exact color, right? So I'm gonna merge this down and let's play with this at the same time. So I'm gonna make like a darker gray. Let's do a fill object, and I definitely need 100% for this. Let me try this again. And honestly, I wouldn't mind if this was kind of a somewhat bluish, almost like a bluish gray. I think for metal, for like a toy metal, I think that's actually really cool. Let me solo this for a second. We can of course go into masking and add some cool effects there. If that's something you want to do, if you want to make it a little more detailed, masking is going to give you things like curvature or shadows and all that stuff. You can do that. Or, you know, in this tutorial, I'm sort of going for something that looks a lot like kind of a basic toy. I'm not really looking to paint this in any sophisticated way, right? So I'm just doing something super simple. And for that reason, what I could do is I can just add just a little bit noise to this very quickly by just making this just a little bit lighter right here. And then going to, let's go back to our spray, for example, and I'll just grab something like even this alpha 7, make this super large, press X. And what I could do, let's change our intensity to maybe 25. And by doing that, you can see what I'm doing. I can create kind of a little bit of a variation in the paint, right? Just as kind of breaking up a little bit. And you can see what that looks like. And that's all I want. All I want to do is just some kind of a break in the color. And if you take a look, you can see that I think that will totally work. Let's just see what something like this looks like as is in you know, in Blender, right? So to get that going, right now I'm at 2.2 million points. If you think that's too high, you can of course go through and decimate the model. And I show that during the witch tutorial as well. You can just go through each subtool and just quickly decimate it. So if you do decimate it, you can also keep your PolyPaint and make sure that that you know, carries over to Blender. But to export this out, I am going to leave it at 2 million. And again, I'm not animating it. I don't really need to be, you know, I don't really care about topology or anything like that. All I want to do is just grab this model as is and just bring it into Blender for a quick, you know, for a quick render, right? So to do this, I just need to merge all of them together. So I'm going to say merge visible. As soon as I click this button, merge visible, you can see a new tool was created. And now this tool is just all merged together, and he's just one, he almost looks like a little toy, right? I think he's great. Let's go ahead and take this guy and export him out. Before you export out, make sure you save your tool just in case. You can save this one as decimated because we did just went through and painted everything. You can just simply save this over the other one. Just make sure you have your paint just in case. Whenever you are done and exporting stuff out, it's really good idea to save it just in case, you know, something happens, right? Let's go ahead and go to the merged one, and I'm gonna save this as my merged version just so I have another tool. And once you do that, let's go ahead and do export. It doesn't really matter if you save it as an FBX or an OBJ. Both of those formats will hold PolyPaint, and Blender will import both of those just the same. So I'm just gonna leave it as is and just say save. All right, once the export finishes, I'm gonna jump into Blender. All right, I'm gonna go to File, Import. Let me grab my OBJ file. All right, so here he is. You can see there's 2.2 million verts, or 2.2, I guess, million faces, right? And as far as the performance goes, it doesn't really matter because, again, we're not going to animate any of it, and he looks just fine. So all I need to do is just simply move him up. If I wanted to snap this into place, I can click on these little guys here. If I want to change my view, and let me just make sure he's perfectly staying on the floor, right? I think that's great. Now, how do we activate the PolyPaint in here? Well, to do that, we need to switch to obviously a different shading mode. So I'm going to go into a preview mode initially. Let's go ahead and click on this one. All right, so this is what it looks like. If you wanted to know the name of the PolyPaint, let's just select our model and go into the data, click on color attributes, and in here you can see the name of your PolyPaint. By default, it should just be called color. So I'm going to leave it as is. And now all we need to do is just activate the actual PolyPaint inside the material, right? So to do this, let's go into shading, and I'm using Blender 4.2. By default, this is the material that I see. If you don't have one here, just simply create a new one and apply it to your mesh. But by default, this one is already activated, which is fine. All I need to do now is just take this here, and I'm going to press delete. And essentially what I want to do is I want to activate the PolyPaint inside this base color. What I'm going to do is press Shift A, go to search, and type in the word attribute. You should see this little window pop up. If I just take this color and plug it into my base color, then just simply name the name of the PolyPaint, which is obviously color, press enter. You should see the color kick in, and that is going to be pretty much it, right? Let's go into layout and take a look. So here it is. Here's our PolyPaint inside Blender. All right, and to make it look fantastic, all you need to do is just simply adjust the material. We can make it a little more metallic. We can play with the roughness if you want to control that. And you can turn on subsurface, do a specular. Just take the time and play with these and kind of dial him up the way you like it. My intention is to make him look somewhat kind of like a plastic toy, right? That's all I really want. All right, and to render him out, all you need to do is just go to add a 3-point light. Usually I do 2 lights in front and 1 in the back for like a rim light. And then of course you can just simply go to render. And we cover all of that in the Witch series as well, if you want to know how to quickly set up lights in Blender. And then of course if you go into your render engine, you can decide if you want to use Eve or cycles, and play around and see, you know, which one you like better. But this is definitely not a Blender tutorial. I just wanted to show you the process of importing the character in here. And once you set up the lighting scene the way you like it just one time, you can even just save it as a template and just always bring in your characters into the same environment and just adjust the HDRI lighting and very quickly just kind of create awesome renders, right? And honestly, I'm going to do just that. I'm going to take this guy and load him into my Witch template that I set up with you guys in our previous tutorials and see how he's looking there. All right, and here we are. This is the final result. I added a little red light, like a reddish light for the rim light, so it looks a little more dangerous. It would be fun to add a little smoke on top if we wanted to do a little post effect or whatever else you want to do. But very quickly, you can see how beautiful PolyPaint looks pretty much as is if you just simply drag it right into Blender and don't do much to it besides just setting up a couple lights. Thank you so much for joining me today. In our next part, I will go through the process, kind of a little more of a technical video, and we'll create UVs for this guy. And you know, maybe change the, obviously optimize the topology and add textures and all of that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in our next video.